Hello and welcome to my video. In this video I'm going to discuss how the concealed threat is used on its own without any presented ideas. This is a common party trick of inhumane people. It's very nasty. This trick was done to me by a woman that I thought was a friend. She was a neighbour at one time, but we didn't really know each other very well. I will cover the aspects of the cheat and you will see why she chose to do things the way she did. This woman rang me one day and said she was wanting to go down to the pier to have lunch and she'd like to have my company. I was free, so I thought, why not? It's a nice restaurant down there. So she arrived, off we went, we chatted, everything looked fine. Then as she took down the ramp into the car park, she announced that she wanted to do the round and park near the exit. Nothing looked amiss. So she continued down and did the round, and as we came back about halfway, she slowed down almost to a standstill. In fact, she did stop. She said, maybe we should start looking for parking spots. Now, there was ample parking. On the opposite side, there was an incident involving two cars. One of them had entered into a parking spot and the other one behind it started beeping his horn and yelling that was my spot, and the other guy saying, "Get lost." They exchanged some abusive remarks. The whole thing looked odd. It just didn't add up. There was plenty of parking spots. It didn't seem feasible that there would be an argument like that when there was ample parking all around. Anyway, I thought something wasn't right and I voiced that. I said, something's wrong here. My friend, well, inverted commas, my friend, started laughing. I looked at her quizzically and she turned around and she said to me, "Are you paranoid or something?" This was almost an attack. I thought that maybe I had overreacted and I let the matter drop. I dismissed the matter. I'm going to stop here to give you the explanation of what was done by this action from my late psychopathic husband. Much later, when my husband was talking about the foul game play, I asked him about this incident, the whole incident. In the first part, he said this car incident was not just something random, but rather that it was contrived. He said while we were doing the round to go to the other side of the car park, these two people, he said, would have been putting themselves into position, ready, so that when she drove back and slowed down, then they could create the incident. And it looked like that it was just a random event, so it could be parcelled off as a random event. A person who becomes suspicious and complains about it will be called delusional or paranoid, he said, and then went on to stress that if they mentioned this to a psychiatrist, they would be diagnosed as having psychotic features, and then started laughing. This is one reason why he used to boast that we, being the inhumane people and the things they do, we have medical cover. It means that the victim is discredited and by a psychiatrist. The inhumane people can get away with doing whatever they want to do. Now, my late psychopathic husband called the car incident an introduction. An introduction to what? I asked. He explained that the introduction makes the person aware of the criminals that were going to be used in the foul gameplay. But they want the person to then dismiss the incident created from mind. When the matter is dismissed as irrelevant or unimportant and just happened to be coincidence, then the person loses knowledge. Awareness is never lost, but the knowledge about that awareness can be lost. This party trick of the Inhumane demonstrates this very clearly, as you will see. She continued further up park. We went up to the restaurant. The restaurant was quite full, but she saw a table where people were just getting up to leave, and she quickly moved to proclaim it as our table. I joined her and we sat down, and we had soon ordered some pastries and coffee for our lunch. It was a great atmosphere. We were enjoying ourselves. We had eaten our first pastry and some of our coffee when suddenly I felt an urgent need to vomit, and I mean urgent. I swung around the chair and vomited into the barrel pot of the palm. She frowned, looked concerned, and asked if I was okay. I said I'm okay. We ordered something new for me and I had that. And shortly after I'd finished eating, the same thing happened again. This time I was able to get up and try to make it to the ladies' toilet. However, I didn't get very far and I had to vomit again into the barrel pot of another palm. Now I'll stop here again to give you the explanation from my late psychopathic husband. Now he had been involved in this sort of tricks over the years, so we are getting it from the horse's mouth. He began saying, if a concealed threat is posed and the person has only just eaten. What? I screamed. Oh, that's easy, he said. As soon as you had finished eating, she would have signaled the criminals to get ready to shoot. I never saw her giving anyone any signals, I said. Oh, you would have seen the signal, he told me confidently, but you wouldn't have recognized it as a signal. And as he spoke, he touched his nose, ran his fingers through his hair. Something ordinary, he added. And then with a chuckle, he added, we always use the normal approach. When I asked what he meant by the normal approach, he cited an example of something looking like a log in the lake with birds sitting on it unperturbed, when really it was a partly submerged crocodile. And he stressed that the birds would be unperturbed, thinking that it's only a log. And the same, he said, with anybody seeing a signal, they only see something that looks normal and they are unperturbed by the signal. But, of course, it has implications. So she would have had criminals in the restaurant, I said in horror. Oh, they were the people in the car incident, he told me. So they would have followed you up to the restaurant a few minutes later and positioned themselves somewhere where she could see them and they could see her. At the bar, probably. That's very central. Then, in a casual manner, he said, so they would be able to carry out what they needed to do. I never saw them, I said, and I certainly didn't see anybody around me that looked threatening in any way. So how could I have had fear from something I wasn't aware of and have a fight or flight response which created a declined digestion and urgent need to vomit, expel the food that I had just eaten? You were aware, but you didn't know it, he said. That's why we call it a concealed threat. What? I'm not getting this, I said. Look, he said, the introduction was done in order to make you aware of the criminals. But then, when you were laughed at and you dismissed the matter as unimportant, then you lost knowledge about that awareness. So, if they could be brought into your vicinity sometime later, and they needed to be close by in order to pose a serious threat, enough for you to vomit, you would be aware of them. But even though the awareness is vague, if a threat is posed and danger exists, you will react, and that reaction is in the body, physiological, a strong fight or flight response. The whole thing was done to make you aware of them. And then when you were laughed at, you were caused to lose the knowledge when you dismissed the matter. This incident and others like it have indicated to me, at least, that conscious is having awareness with knowledge about that awareness. If we lack the knowledge for some reason, then we could call it subconscious, awareness without knowledge. Now, this incident didn't end in the restaurant. There was also the way home. So let me explain what happened. I decided to go home, catch a taxi home. She wouldn't hear of it. She insisted to drive me home. So I said, okay, let's go. I gave her some money for my share. Then I moved on ahead and she paid the bill at the bar. We got down to the car. She fussed around for a little bit, but soon we were off. On the way home though, I did notice that she was preoccupied, looking in her rear vision mirror for some time. Now there was a lot of traffic and perhaps there was someone behind that she was worried about. I didn't give it much attention. Then we came by a few shops and she said, oh look, I just remembered I need to go and get a newspaper. Oh, there's something I've got to look up. She parked the car and told me she wouldn't be more than a few minutes, and off she went. Soon she was back, threw the newspaper in the back seat, and off we went. Again she chatted on the way home. Nothing looked amiss. Not long after, she came up to a street where she needed to do a right-hand turn to go up to my street. As we approached the turn, I had another urgent need to vomit. This time all I could do was slightly open the car door, and the coffee and water I had drunk just before leaving the restaurant sprayed out of my mouth onto the street, like water out of a fire hose. Finally she made the turn and soon she dropped me off at my house. I was a little bit worried, but I didn't feel sick. So I made myself some more coffee and had that. That was okay. I made myself some toast and had that. And again, there was no problem. Half an hour later, an hour later, 2 hours later, dinner. And there was no problem. Here too, my late psychopathic husband said, you were set up again. This was a third concealed threat that was posed, and serious enough to need to vomit. And he explained how it was arranged. First, in the car park, she fussed, he said, to give them time to walk to their car. Then her preoccupation with looking behind what was behind was to see when they had caught up and were right behind her, or close enough for them to see her signal where she wanted to park. So they could have parked either behind her or further ahead. Either way, you wouldn't have noticed. And if one of them walked into the paper shop in amongst a lot of other people that were coming and going in and out of the paper shop, you would not have noticed them. News agencies sell road maps, he said, so there's one ready waiting for her. It would only take a few minutes to give directions where to wait. And of course, she gives them the first and the second signals. So they would have gone on ahead and waited where she indicated she would make a right-hand turn. I can't believe that she would have done that, I said. Why would she have done that? Payback, my late husband said. Payback? For what? What had I done? You left early and spoilt her fun, he said. Thank you for viewing my video. And here is a pig of a different variety.